This is one of the most special stories in my life. I'm sure many of you have heard the phrase, never judge a man until his wife gets pregnant. The point of this proverb is that it's impossible to know a man's worth until he becomes a father. Some men turn into real jerks when they learn their girlfriend is pregnant because they feel like they now being forced to grow up. And some men who seem to be total losers suddenly become the most devoted and loving guys once they have a kid. I've seen it all. And this story is about a guy who became a dad and didn't change at all. In fact, this dude was probably the most loyal friend in the world. In the winter of 2013, I was visiting my friend Serge in Los Angeles. Serge has been my best friend since we were kids. When I visited him, Serge lived in a big house in the suburbs with his wife, Lisa, and their 2 kids. Even though he had enough money for us to stay in a hotel, he insisted we move right into his guest house. And as soon as I arrived, he started giving me orders, like, you go over there and fix that shelf. Why is the grass so long? You're gonna mow it today? And I was just thinking, dude, I just got here and I already feel like I'm your personal servant. I mean, we're supposed to be hanging out and having fun. But instead, he made me work from morning till night. And then, after we'd eat dinner, he'd tell me bedtime stories about how great of a father he is. And I'd think, oh my God, am I raising his kids or what? But even though I hated it, I still did everything he asked because he was my best friend and he was going through a lot. A few years earlier, he developed stomach cancer. He went through several surgeries and months of chemotherapy. And luckily, he survived it. But that experience changed him. Before, he used to be super carefree, but after his illness, he started taking everything really seriously. He became obsessed with providing for his family and constantly worried about what would happen if he died. So I thought, okay, maybe that's why he's acting this way. He probably thinks I'm going to take care of his family if he dies. That's how I saw it, but I wasn't completely right. After a few days of doing chores, finally one evening we sat down on the couch together and he told me the truth. Look, Teo, I know you think I'm making you do all this work for no reason, but that's not true. I just want you to understand what it feels like to be responsible for someone other than yourself, because in a few weeks I am going to pass away. And I said, stop being ridiculous. You're not dying. We're just talking about a week ago. How are you suddenly dying again? He said, no, it's true. My cancer came back and there's nothing doctors can do about it. I have less than a month left to live. And he looked so serious, I believed him. The next day, I did all the work around the house. But in the evening, we didn't talk much. He just kept crying and holding his kids. I wanted to comfort him, but I didn't know what to say. And then he called his wife, Lisa, and she came home from her parents. And when she saw her husband crying, she started screaming at him. What did you tell him? How could you say you're dying again? Don't you think I'll die if I hear this for the 10th time? Then she looked at me and apologized. I'm sorry. He's been through so much already and he gets so attached to people. Every time he finds out he has cancer, he says goodbye to everyone like they'll never see him again. Then he gets better and comes back. He's done that so many times. At first, we thought he was crazy, but later we realized he has something called cancer survivor syndrome. Basically, he thinks he's going to die every time he gets sick, but he always pulls through. And it's not that serious. His cancer isn't deadly. It's rare. So there aren't many doctors who know how to treat it. And every time he goes to a different doctor, they give him a different prognosis. Some of them say he's fine. Some of them say he has a month left. So he doesn't know what to believe anymore. If only he could get to one of those specialist centers in Germany, they'd probably figure it out, but he's too scared to travel. You know, he's been through so much already. I'm just trying to convince him to go, but it's hard. So while Serge's wife was talking, I was thinking, wait. This whole time I thought he actually had a death sentence, but it's not that bad. Maybe I should take him to Germany. So I suggested that to her, but she said, oh no, don't worry about it. I've talked to the best doctors in LA. They all agree he needs to go abroad, but he won't listen to any of us. You're the first person he's been nice to since he learned he's sick. If you ask him, he'll listen. She was begging me, but I still thought, why should I do this for him? It's acting like he's dying, but he's not. It's his problem to figure out. But Lisa wouldn't let me go until I promised to try convincing Serge to go to Germany. The next day, I told Serge what his wife had said, and I suggested we go to Germany. And he replied, "No, I won't go. There's no cure anyway. And even if there is, what kind of father leaves his family during the kid's most important years just because he might die? No, I won't do that. I'd rather die here." Then he started crying and hugged his kids. I wanted to tell him, hey, you're not actually dying, but his wife stopped me and said, don't ruin the moment. Just let him enjoy the time he has left. So I spent my last evening with Serge playing video games and drinking beer. And then the next day, I flew back home. A few weeks later, I got a call from Lisa saying, Teo, thank you so much for being there for my husband. He passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was watching TV and just fell asleep and never woke up again. I was shocked. This whole time I thought he'd be conscious and we'd spend a few days together as a family, but he died before I could even say goodbye. I immediately took the next flight to LA, and when I got there, she told me what happened. He was sick for a few days and then he just fell asleep and died. He left us this note. Then she showed me a letter that read, Lisa, I love you more than anything in the world. Take care of our kids. I'm so grateful I got to spend these last few years with you and the kids. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Serge. Then it continued to my best friend, Tito. I don't know if you'll see this before or after I die. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry I acted so weird lately. I really thought I was dying this time, but now I realize I was wrong. It's not about dying. It's about living. Life is unpredictable, and I may not be here much longer, but I hope you understand. I'm leaving this note so you don't blame yourself. After I die, please take care of my family. If I leave this world, I hope it's in my sleep. Make sure my boys know I loved them. I'm sorry I couldn't be a better friend. Forgive me, Serge. And then he wrote, P.S. I'm not actually dying. That's when I realized what kind of man Serge was. He was so selfless. Even though he knew he might live for many more years, he prepared to die. And instead of saving his own life, he thought about how to make things easier for his family and his friends. When I gave his letter to his wife, she cried and hugged me and said, You were right. I'm so sorry I didn't listen to you. He definitely would have survived if he went to Germany. But thank you for being such a great friend to him. You gave him so much happiness in the last months of his life. Okay. Now, sometimes when I miss Serge, I bring food to his grave. Okay. And every time I do that, his wife joins me. We sit by his grave and we talk about the good old times. Afterwards, we usually go to this little cafe nearby and drink coffee.